The Diablo 4 Season 1 meta has been shaken up quite a bit, and that's left people a little bit confused on which class they should be starting. But don't worry, because today's video we are going to be talking about every single class, ranking them worst to best so that you can figure out which ones you exactly want to play. We're going to be talking about the pros and cons for each class, so even though the best class might not sound like fun to you, you will be able to find something that works for your playstyle. And before we hop into things, if you guys find this video useful, please hit that like and subscribe button to really help my channel. It boosts this video in the YouTube algorithm, and it would put a smile on my face. But now let's jump into things, and to start things off, we've got the Sorcerer. Now the Sorcerer can be very strong at leveling. The Firewall Sorc is an absolute beast in those early levels. You can easily get to level 50 and start to go into World Tier 3 extremely quickly. And on top of that, the Sorcerer also does have some pretty strong build diversity in the endgame. You've got really strong lightning builds like Arc Lash and Chain Lightning. You've got strong fire builds because you can go Firewall or Meteor. And you can even go to the cold side with Ice Shards and Blizzard. There's a ton of diversity with it, but it does fall off a little bit in terms of tankiness. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. I was trying to sugarcoat it to make you guys feel better. But seriously, if the Sorcerer gets looked at funny by a mob, it's going to die. You really need to be on top of your game in dodging and moving and just doing everything you can to not get tickled by a feather duster, because if you do, you're dead. If you're a hardcore player, I don't recommend this even in the slightest. And with the nerfs that came in, it just made it even worse. Now when you get the Sorcerer to endgame, it can be pretty cool because you're doing a lot of different dashing with the teleport and everything like that, but getting there is going to be tough. The mid game is where the Sorcerer kind of really struggles, and it can be a little bit difficult to get some of the aspects or uniques that you need, so that is why it's getting placed in last. Now taking the next spot is going to be the Barbarian. Now I actually really like the Barbarian. It's the class that I played the most in preseason. I had a ton of fun on my Whirlwind Barb, and going into Season 1, the Barbarian isn't going to be actually as weak as some people think. There were some nerfs to the hamstring passive and everything like that, but you're still going to be doing a decent amount of damage. Now you can go Hoda or Whirlwind, and they both will be perfectly fine. The Hoda Barb isn't going to be doing nearly as much damage as it used to, but it will still be enough to get you through the game. And honestly, the Whirlwind Barb is one of the most satisfying builds out there because you're just a guy screaming at enemies and swinging your weapon around a big circle. It's really funny, really satisfying. But the biggest issue with the Barbarians is not their leveling, it's actually getting into your endgame build. In the mid game, it's really hard to balance your Fury, it's really annoying to get all the aspects that you need and actually get them to roll well. And with Whirlwind Barbs, until you actually get enough Fury generation, it's going to be quite annoying because you get enough, you spin for like half a second, then you gotta build more Fury up. I still highly recommend the build, but it's not going to be the best starting off. Next up though, we have the Necromancer, and the Bone Spear Necromancer is still going to be one of the best builds in the game to go for, especially for bossing. The Bone Spear Necro is still going to be doing a ton of damage even with the nerfs to vulnerability. And I'd actually be willing to wager that a Bone Spear Necro is going to have the first Uber Lilith kill this season. They have really strong AoE, they have really fast clear, and they actually do have some decent build diversity. You can go a few different ways. If I was going to build a Necro and I didn't want to play the Bone Spear, I'd probably go the Summon Thorns route, because it looks really funny to have enemies kill themselves just by hitting your summons. But you can build it multiple different ways, it's going to be pretty effective, and it's still going to be a very strong build for the people that like that, but in my opinion, it is a little bit clunky and janky to play in some places, but I still enjoy the build. I still think it's going to be pretty strong, but not as strong as the next two. And so next up, we have to talk about the Druid. The Druid did receive a few nerfs, especially with the critical damage, stuff like that, but it's still going to be an absolute powerhouse build in the endgame, especially once you get all of the uniques that you need. Obviously, finding something like Tempest Roar is still going to be pretty hard, but they've been buffing the amount of loot that you're going to be getting throughout the entirety of preseason. Yes, Hell Tides are going to be harder with the mystery chests, but you still are able to drop uniques out of them now, so if you are farming Hell Tides, you still have the chance. And Nightmare Dungeons consistently are getting buffed, so you're now dropping even more loot from them. And the chance for Sacred and Ancestral gear to be dropping is a lot higher, so Tempest Roar is going to be dropping a lot more frequently. It's still going to be rare, but you get the point that I'm trying to make here. And once you do get that Tempest Roar, you can start to roll into either a Tornado Druid or the build that I'm going to be playing Season 1, and that's the Lightning Storm Druid. And you're going to be able to do anything you want. You want to do bosses? Cool. You want to do Nightmare Dungeons? Cool. You can do everything. The Druid does have a pretty rough leveling process, but if you wanted to kind of circumvent that a little bit, you could just go Pulverize until you drop a Tempest Roar and then re-roll it. So obviously the Druid is still a top tier build. But the number one class going into Season 1 obviously is going to be the Rogue. The Rogue didn't really get affected by the nerfs that are coming in. And if you're playing something like a poison build on the Rogue, the new aspect is going to be absolutely game changing for you, and you're going to be doing so much more damage. And Twisting Blades already did a stupid amount of damage, so even if you want to roll into that, you're going to be perfectly fine. The Twisting Blades rogue is actually what I started out on when I first started playing Diablo, and I gotta say, I loved it. I was able to do every single form of content that I wanted to without struggling ever. The only times that I ever died on that thing was when I got chain CC'd, and that's my fault because I was standing in something stupid. The biggest issue that the rogue actually does fall into, though, is that it is pretty squishy. It's not nearly as squishy as something like the Sorcerer, but it is still lacking on a few defensive layers. But once you do get to endgame, you will be stacking on some life on kill and other things like that, so you will have a few, but getting to that, you're not going to have them, so you are technically a glass cannon, so you can get one shot by a few high damage abilities, so just be careful for those. But other than that, the rogue doesn't really have any downsides because it's just dashing and fast and killing everything, and did I mention that it's fast and you have a bunch of dashes? Because you do. So if you're looking for the best class to roll into for Season 1 so far, definitely check out the Rogue. But let me know, what class are you guys going to be playing in the comments down below? I'd love to hear some community feedback. And again, if you found this video useful, please hit the like and subscribe button. Thank you guys all for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.